one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens, we start with School Committee Chair report. I have nothing to report. Resource Committee, Mr. Stevens.
Okay, Resource Committee, we met on August 8th, and we approved the minutes. That was the June 13th minutes. Grants were submitted. They will be on tonight.
Okay.
Jim Walsh made a motion to accept all the grants that were listed. Ms. Cragen talked about Ride More, also been a supporter of DPW days for the kids. Eileen Spinney was there, our IT department director. She talked about our lost books and so forth, and we did vote to create an account for IT for lost books and Chromebooks and so forth. Eva Kelly gave an update on enrollment. Mr. Jokela did a budget update, and we adjourned at 12:10. We met again on Thursday, September 5th, and the agenda items, it was mostly grants to submit and grants to accept. They're all on tonight's agenda. There were a number of donations which are on tonight's agenda. We talked about school choice allocation, which for technology upgrades and projector and document cameras, and a language title change for the middle school athletics to read middle school, high school athletics. Eva Kelly gave an enrollment update for the start of school was 5584, and that's still evolving. That was anything else, Ms. Cragen? Or?
No, I think that covers it. It was pretty comprehensive, as all the resource meetings are.
Why don't you move right into school building needs, please?
School building. Okay. Yeah. Okay. School building needs. We met on Thursday, August 8th, and we approved our minutes of May 2nd. We discussed Crocker Field and what was going on at Crocker Field and the work that's been being done there. Mr. Jokela gave us a Crocker MSBA project update and the next steps. School building director, Mr. Peterson, gave us an update on repairs and maintenance. Also, the accelerated repairs for South Street Elementary School and school security assessment update.
Questions? Seeing none, Ms. Cragen, Policy Committee.
Sure. So we've got two policies that we are going to be approving. The first is the bullying prevention and intervention. This has been in the works for a number of months, and the reason we recommended that we just move forward for a second reading is that the school year has started. The special ed department has some new staff members, and it's good that everyone begins the year on the same page. So, again, for us to be in compliance with the state, there were a lot of additions to be made to this. Roanne, anything to add?
So there's, good evening.
Hi.
Good evening.
So the bullying is on for a second reading for tonight. There was some word changing in the policy due to the law. So we are in the process of kind of complying with the law now that before you used to have to record any incident of bullying. Moving forward, it's any incident or any allegation. So we have to now record both sets of data. So if anybody makes an actual allegation, we have to collect that data as well, as long as, along with the incidence of data for bullying. So before, you would collect data on an incident of bullying, whether it met the law, which would be 3 instances that would meet the regulations under bullying. Now we also have to collect data that aligns with allegations. So we changed that wording in here. We're still working on the data collection part. The state hasn't been clear yet on how they're going to collect that data or what the timelines are going to be on that. So we're still waiting on an advisory from the state on that particular part of the data.
So we're directed strictly by Mass General Law, is that everything that we do? I noticed in reviewing the bullying policy, by the way, Sally, nice, and the committee and you as well, a lot of great work in there, and I appreciate that. That was the bullying and the physical restraint policy. Good stuff. But that, the state really has kind of handcuffed us, and forgive the term.
Well, they're very clear on
Oh, they're clear,
their
all right.
expectations, yes. The one leeway the district has is, I mean, you have the policy piece, which is really directed by Mass General Law. The school district also has a bullying prevention plan, and that piece is set more by the district because that can ebb and flow, and that's the instructional part, which would be how we deliver bullying training to our staff and students in the district. So that piece, I know right now, we're in the process of looking at. It hasn't been reviewed for several years, so we're taking a look at what instructional pieces around bullying and prevention we have in place and whether those need to be updated.
So we're in a different world now, huh, with this cyberbullying that goes on as well.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't stop at the end of the school day.
Right.
It happens all throughout the night and the next morning and before and on the weekends.
Yep. And that's the piece around the allegation piece where anybody can come forward and make a claim of bullying, an allegation.
Yeah.
Whether it be through cyberbullying or direct face-to-face.
Okay.
And we have to take those into consideration, all of them.
Okay.
I think another big part of
Thank
this
you.
too is what the state's going to use this data for, and what kind of decisions are going to be informed using this data. And we haven't heard.
No, we don't have
the
an
state yet.
advisory on
I
that
think that's
yet.
a huge part of this that's still
Yeah.
missing, and kind of, I don't know, adds a big part of it.
Yep.
Because obviously there's a concern that it's going to be very inflated, especially with cyberbullying and everything like that. You know,
Yeah.
bullying has such a strong connotation that any kind of single incident that's, first day of school, I don't like your shoes or anything like that, that's all going to be called bullying by the parents and by people. It's a very, specific definition in our policy and how schools usually deal with it. So I think that's kind of a concern moving forward, especially not knowing how the state's going to be using that kind of data. So it's something that I think
I just
about.
want to jump in. I mean,
Please.
we have a full-on social and emotional learning,
Ah.
philosophy and mission and, plans in place. And on the one hand, this kind of, regulations are being driven by the state. And at the same time, we have our social and emotional classrooms, and we have our professional development for our teachers, so that our teachers can, handle what comes forward. Because, one person's definition of bullying might be someone else's, I don't know. So would you go, anyone here want to jump in? Because again, Craig and John having been principals, you've seen this in every possible dimension.
Right. Bullying takes repeated offenses. Typically, it's
Right.
not just a single offense, and whether it's comments or something that happens, many times people kind of refer to that as bullying. But in a single event, it's not. It's an incident, and then you have to kind of track that and follow it and investigate it. And then it's the multiple times it's happening time and time again.
So just to let everyone know, coming up on September 24th from 6 to 7 at the Enrollment and Family Engagement Center at Central Office, a member from the District Attorney's Office is coming to do a presentation to the community about bullying and cyberbullying bullying safety. So
What
that's
was the
open.
date again, John?
Yep, it's Tuesday, September 24th, from 6 to 7 p.m. at South Street School at the Enrollment and Family Engagement Center. So there'll be members from the district attorney's office talking about bullying and cyberbullying, explaining it to parents, because we get a lot of reports from parents about bullying, but sometimes it really isn't bullying. So we're trying to educate our community about what is bullying and what isn't bullying.
I just had a question, Craig, when you were talking. When a child feels victimized by a couple of kids, right? Like, would it be, but it's not the same child who's victimized him or her. Does it count that the student's saying, hey, this kid and this kid are doing this to me? And is that now more than one? Is that now I'm just curious.
It's that pattern, and again, it's not to minimize that the incident isn't serious.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not it qualifies as ongoing, repetitive nature of the behavior.
Right.
So it could very well be that. We've had, incidences where it could be a group of students and one other student.
Right.
That's dealt as kind of one incident. In the dynamics of that, they're constantly moving. So we
Right.
work very closely with all families, in particular with the school resource officer. Usually, we always said one time is a singular incident. Once it goes to two, we always involve the SRO right away. Because if it gets to the third incident, then it could technically would qualify to go to court.
Okay, yes.
He has trouble seeing me down
I
here.
got you, I got you.
Sorry.
Two questions. Do you know who's coming from the DA's office?
I do not know, no.
Do you know if, will all the parents of all the schools be notified, so it could,
Yes.
in potentially, be a large crowd?
Including Leominster Public Schools was invited.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And if I may call you Craig or Mr. Shalfo, the way that you talked about bullying and more than one incident, but I think that what you're saying is each incident has to be reported now?
Well, we have to record it, and we have to look at it, so that we are properly then saying, is it one or more incidents that's happening for the student? Or is it one or more students that are targeting this particular student? And by us collecting that data around the allegations, then you're kind of collecting a history for that to
Well, when you say
see
we-
and do an investigation. That will be every school doing that
More or
work.
less, you do that already, right? I mean,
Individual buildings do that already.
Yes.
Yep.
okay, because it sounded like, oh my goodness.
It's just now being reported.
We have to
Yes.
report it.
Reported to the state.
Yep.
When in the
That's a bit
past,
much,
we
isn't it?
reported incidents of bullying. Now we have to report incidents of allegations.
Oh, dear Lord.
So we'll have a particular data set that the state will require us
Is
to
this
do.
sensible? Is this sensible? I mean, do we have to do everything that the state thinks of us to do?
Yes, we do.
You know, it's-
I mean, I want to be
But I
clear,
mean-
our schools work really hard to do that now.
The state tells us what they're gonna do with it.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
It's like, it could be like big. Oh, maybe this could be a really, inflated statistic, and I don't think it's, there's obviously like mixed thoughts to it. You can come at it from a lot of different sides, but until we know what the state's actually gonna use this data and what decisions they're gonna inform with this, I
Okay.
would be cautious to jump to conclusions just yet.
But,
Until we know.
so how do we ask the state what they intend to do with it?
We've been asking, and they still
Yeah,
haven't
we
been.
we have to wait until they're ready to come out with their advisory. Because it has to connect to their data system that they already pull all our data from, so.
And in our student support meeting, you said it could be a year. I mean, for their standards, for the state standards, it could be a year until
Be
they
longer than
tell
that.
us what this data is going to be used for. So, it's going to be an ongoing thing.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Nope, you'll see the policies when it comes time to
Yeah,
approve.
Just so you're aware, you have a new policy of collection of pupil information policy that's up for a first reading tonight, which we made some pretty significant changes to.
Yes.
For you to review and look at. And this changes the district's policy around being able to collect information. So the prior, everything was an opt-in. At this point, we are looking to opt in under certain particular protected areas that we're required to by the law. But we would then have typical surveys that are not protected under these 7 categories to be able to survey parents and students. So that might be like an MCAS survey, anything that's instructionally related, just so you're aware on your first reading of that.
Can I ask a question about that? So in the paperwork that parents sign off on in the very beginning of the year, this is separate than that? So if a student, or is that, once that signature is obtained, it's consent to participate in any of those?
Well, we can never use that particular signature to do a survey that has any of these
Any of
7
these.
protected areas. In order for us to do a survey under these 7 protected areas, we must obtain parental consent directly for that survey. Because it is they're protected areas.
Yeah.
And those really would be more intensive surveys around questions about family dynamics, sexual orientation, mental health. Those are all protected and would need a parent to opt into that.
Do you do the youth risk behavior? I'm trying to remember.
So we haven't for a while. We're hoping to, but that would be an opt-in
Okay.
because it does ask some sensitive questions. So we would have to send out the survey and get parental permission to do that. But the rest of the surveys around academic, how you feel about your math instruction. Do you feel it's too hard, or do you want, those are the types of things we're looking to be able to survey our students about without an opt-in.
Yes.
Just a further thought development as I'm listening to this and thinking about it. To be fair to the young people, whatever age they're in our school system, I should think that if you're watching and reporting each incident or even accusation of an incident, that there should be comparable conflict and training provided the children. Now I'm picturing this scenario where in a home, they're accustomed to calling each other stupid. And so that child comes to school and calls somebody stupid, which is to him is a normal, everyday thing, and somebody else, he called me stupid. And it all escalates. I don't know, I just resist this big brother watching everything, recording every word, without adult interpretation on the local, at the smallest level.
Yep.
I just want that to be
And our buildings
Good.
do work really hard because we are, educators of children. So it's also a social development time for them. So when students come to us upset about an incident, our guidance, our teachers, and our administrators work really hard to help that student and kind of manage through whether it qualifies to meet the definition of bullying or not. And then, because a student could be very distressed, but it might not meet the qualifications of bullying, but they're still going to address the situation, whether it be through a peer-to-peer discussion or whether they meet with a group of students. They do that every day with the work that they do and contact parents and talk to them about that.
So I guess what I'm really troubled with is the word allegation.
Yep.
I see that as a charged.
Well, it's going to be, it's going to be a big charge, but we don't know yet.
And that's why we're trying to educate our community about what bullying is and what it's not. Like Aiden said, for this example, you could have a child saying, "I don't like your shoes." We get phone calls at the building level saying that's an example of bullying. So we have to let our family members know that this is bullying. This is what bullying means. This is how many times something has to happen in order for it to be bullying. So that's our goal with having this training in September.
Thank you. Ms. LaBelle Pierce, School Student Support Committee.
So we met last Friday, and the items on our agenda included the district's communication plans, specifically the reiteration that parents really need to be informed, that their emails need to be updated, that they should be getting communication from their child's principal. We know that the Facebook and Twitter and Instagram accounts have all been expanded, so that's all good news. But there are still gaps. There are still people who aren't getting the communication that they need, and so we talked about really reiterating that each school needs to be responsible for their list each year, and make sure that parents are also finding ways to get meaningful use out of X2. We talked about the possibility of conducting another survey of parents. I think that is a discussion that that Bob's team will take on and figure out what they might use that information for and how best to roll that out. We also heard an update about the civics rollout. The new legislation goes into effect this year, or is in effect, and all the 8th grade classes are running a civics program and using Generation Citizen for their projects, which is great. That's a really wonderful organization, so that's great to see that the whole district is having that experience. And that made us put on our following agenda the computer science frameworks, which also have rolled out this year. So that'll be on our that'll be covered in our upcoming meetings. We heard some input about what's happening with additional funding that's come to the Fitchburg Public Schools, and basically there's a lot of need, and a lot of that money's already accounted for in a variety of programs. So we'll be hearing more about really what the needs might specifically be when we know the MCAS results, which are embargoed at this point, and we'll be able to hear which groups maybe we should be focusing on. But we've got the enrollment. We're 5,592 students by October 1st. So, our numbers are big, and we can use all the funding help we can get. And then finally, John Thompson and Pam Rivers covered that same bullying prevention plan that Stamach spoke about, and basically are going to be working on updating it and making the plan realistic and kind of bringing that forward to us at some point this year, probably after, in 2020, as they really kind of figure that out. And I think that's...
Yeah, I'll just add on the civics curriculum, I implore everyone to take a really good look at it, because I had a huge smile across my face when I was looking at it for the materials that we did have, and it was really extensive and really exciting. That was the material I was learning in college. It was very advanced. It was Rousseau and John Locke. There was discussions about how real laws are made. It looked very extensive from when I was in high school, 8 years ago. It was really impressive.
Well, I'll just add, as a social studies teacher, it's near and dear to my heart, because you all have watched it. We've lost ground on what kids know about their own agency, and we need to get that back.
There was video games in it too. It was an interesting curriculum. I think you guys would find it interesting.
Questions or comments? All set. School personnel, that would be me. There's a couple of new faces in the room. They're not really new. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Shalavo, Mr. Renda. This is a demonstration of a really strong leadership team that the superintendent has amassed. Thank you for that effort. And I thought we were really going to be in trouble with the positions they vacated, but you know what? Even equally as strong on the principal side. And that's the reason why we're going to fail or succeed, is leadership. Leadership in each individual school. So it's increasingly important that we have the right people in place, and I think I think you've put that together. My compliments. Thank you. Pete.
I gave you a package tonight, Mr. Jokela's self-evaluation and 5 goals that he would like to accomplish this year. Give you a chance to take it home, read it, look at his goals, and in 2 weeks, we come back October 1st, you'll have had you'll have had a chance to look at it, make comments, and any additions you'd like to see. Okay?
Great. Questions? Executive Committee, I have nothing to report. And where are our students? Is this too early?
It's usually early.
Is this kind of early for them? Okay. It wouldn't be you two, would it? Okay.
Actually, I'd
Great.
like to,
Yeah.
if we're going to talk students, I'd really like to thank Bao Nago and
Yes.
Ali Zambrano and, Laurie Stone's kids and Trinity
Abby?
Walker.
Abby Stone?
Yes, Abby Stone. We had a low-cost vaccine clinic on August 10th in Fitchburg at the West Fitchburg Fire Department. And we had those high school students and also a lovely young woman, Brianna Normandin from St. Bernard's. And they helped. They helped with the line, they helped with the pets and the owners. And it was a hot day, and we had students really talking to owners and saying, you might want to bring your dog into the shade. And really taking, a real leadership position. So this was all a collaboration with Friends of Fitchburg Dogs and Be Positive, but we handled 180 animals that day. And the students were essential. And they came ready to work, and they stayed the whole time. And Allie, who's in the room today, came and helped for Be Positive at the Roots Fest last Saturday. So she, again, Mr. Waffles comes with an entourage. So thank you, Allie. We really appreciated you helping us out.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none. Approval of the minutes of previous school committee meeting of June 17, 2019.
Make a motion?
Motion
Second.
made, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is unanimous. I don't believe there's a need for executive session. Communications, anyone wishing? Yes.
Quick announcement,
Yep.
there's a benefit for Coggeshall Park on September the 19th, which is a week from Thursday. I'm going to be going, and I hope that other folks can go, because Coggeshall Park is, again, one of the magical enchanted places in Fitchburg that someone with a lot of imagination made it possible for every child who grows up here to go walk around Mirror Lake and enjoy the playground and enjoy the turtles and everything. So hooray for Coggeshall Park, and I look forward to seeing folks there at the benefit.
Great. Thank you. Anyone wishing to make public comment, please approach the center table. Oh, that's why you're here. Okay.
Hi, so
Hi.
I'm Elise Pierce. I'm the president of the senior class. I'm Alejandra Zambrano, and I'm the vice president. We have some papers here because I think that our proposal for seniors to paint parking spots is on the agenda for the next meeting. But we want to just pass out some information so you guys have that, and if you have any questions, you can include them for next time.
Yeah, you're going to explain what that means, right?
Yes, it's
Painting
all on
parking,
here
oh, it's
too.
all in there?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
That's all. We'll see you guys next time.
Brilliant.
Okay.
We had discussed this.
Chance
To-
to think of questions.
And
Yeah.
maybe we can have a building needs subcommittee meeting before the October 7th meeting.
We discussed this in the past, maybe
Yeah.
with Jeremy. I
Yes.
forget we discussed this in the
Yes.
past.
Out of meeting.
Okay.
So to be continued, is that?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay, superintendent's report, Mr.
Okay.
Jokela. Yep.
So, a couple things. One, I want to recognize Mr. Stevens. He'll be receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award at the school committee leadership dinner on Thursday, November 7th, so I want to just
right.
bring that up to the public's attention.
Yay!
So, thank you for the kind words earlier, Mayor. I just want to let you know that there are a few people up here at the table, people out here in the audience, Roanne and Adam, and, a lot of other principals and directors. It's going to be a team collaborative approach, so
Great,
thank
great
you.
group. Yep.
So tonight, the nurses update from Pam Rivers. Pam had a family emergency. She couldn't make it tonight, so she'll be back at one of the 2 meetings in October to give her update. So having said that, I will now welcome Dave Semenza and Nicole.
Hello, everybody. You don't know my password. No, I do not. So that won't work. So, as Adam logs in for us, Dave Semenza, the Nutrition Services Director, and this is Nicole Mangotis, our dietitian in our office. I know we presented last June. Nicole was not available to join Danielle and myself that night, so Nicole is here tonight. Danielle is not able to be with us tonight because she is home with her 1-day-old baby daughter. So,
All right.
we wanted to do a brief nutrition services sort of summer recap. And just a couple of things that we've got up and running for the start of this school year. So, just a quick little nutrition services note by the numbers occurred to me, just to give you folks sort of an idea of what it is and the numbers we do. So the numbers up here represent from 2018, 2019 school year and summer. Lunches, almost 700,000 lunches. Breakfasts, over 350,000 breakfasts. 116,000 after-school snacks. 55,000 dinners, and 35,000, almost 35,000 meals this past summer, for a total of 1.2 million meals served in and around the city of Fitchburg in just the last 12 months. Just to give you an idea of the sheer numbers of folks we're reaching with what we do each and every day in our department. Quick update on the summer food service program. Our summer food service program, we've had it for years. It's a USDA sponsored program that allows us to provide meals, breakfast and lunch free of charge in and around the city of Fitchburg. And this past summer was our most successful summer yet. Up on the list, those are Fitchburg specific sites. Those are sites where we serve meals throughout the summer. People can show up, get a free, kids 18 and under. Kids and teens 18 and under can show up, get a free meal, no questions asked, during the summer at these sites. It's such an underutilized program. We serve more meals than we ever have this past summer, but it's still such a need.
You did not do CAPS this summer?
So, and then also we have sites outside of Fitchburg. The reputation our program has, we have multiple sites now in Leominster, Lancaster, Clinton, Westminster, Lunenburg, the libraries and Park and Recs from other cities. The CAPS program Mr. Stevens was referencing are all folks that participate in our summer meals program. Summer meals, 22 sites this past summer, 2 affiliated sites. An affiliated site is a site that Fitchburg Schools does not sponsor. For example, Crocker Playground, Fitchburg Park and Recreation Department sponsors that site, but we provide the meals to it. The remaining sites, Fitchburg Public Schools, we sponsor, so we take the initiative to go out and sort of sell these programs to different locations in order to provide these free meals. And again, in 2000, this shows how the program has grown since 2011. All meals are prepared at Fitchburg High School. We turn that kitchen and part of the cafeteria into a massive production facility where we're preparing about 300 cold and 1,000 hot meals each and every day. Total meals served this past summer, we served almost 35,000 breakfast and lunch, as you can see by the graph, steadily rising. We had a little spike in 14, just the nature of it, but just through efforts of social media, advertising and whatnot, the word is getting around every year. We seem to get a little bigger. For those who know me, this is the stat I'm most proud of. During the summer, we keep 19 nutrition services staff members gainfully employed. And that has grown every year since since we took over the program. It's very important to me. I feel I have a social responsibility as the director to make sure folks are working. And we do everything we can to make sure we're growing these programs, not only to feed folks that need it, but we can have folks, gainfully employed. That's our summer update. Couple school nutrition services in general. We have a new logo in our department. The logo on the left is our new Fitchburg Nutrition Services, our tagline, Fueling Quality Education. We wanted to go with a simple, clean look, something that shouted nutrition. That's why the word nutrition is highlighted. And again, our tagline of Fueling Quality Education.
My compliments on getting the color right.
Well, and wait till you see the next slide.
Oh, the next one, okay.
And then we also have a secondary logo. That logo, we held a contest last year at Fitchburg High School for Fitchburg High School students in the graphics arts class to design a secondary logo. We had a lot of submissions, and the logo on the right is our secondary logo that we'll use on social media from time to time.
Nice.
That was designed
Yep,
by
that's
Arisa
good.
Jordan, and she won an Apple iPad for being the winning designer.
There you go.
And speaking of the colors, there's our new uniform.
All right.
Our NORAD. And quick shout out to the person in the picture. That is Cindy Brunell. Cindy is celebrating her 45th year with us. I was just doing the math before I came up. There's a good chance if you were born 1958 or after and went to a Fitchburg public school, she served you lunch. Wow.
That's great.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, she's been with us all that time. And she's
That's a lot of hairnets, huh?
a lot of heads. Big change this year. We have a new menu program at Fitchburg High School called Taste For. It's the Sodexo High School menu program. And it is a program designed for kids by kids. Designed for high school students by high school students. Revamped the whole serving area, the kitchen, everything with all new signage, new updated menus. Focusing on scratch meals and meals that we know kids will enjoy. Our numbers are high. We're running into one issue now. Some of our lines are too long because it's so popular, but we're going to be adding some additional lines. We've, I've spoken with Principal Roach about that, and we're addressing that. We had to order some equipment. It's on the way, and our very popular grill line is going to be reconfigured to.
So do you guys do surveys at all, the students themselves?
We do.
What do you think of this?
Well,
The food here at Fitchburg High School, kind of,
We have found kids respond to informal surveys the best, and Chad Gardner is an excellent resource. We utilize him a lot.
Yeah.
He comes out, he does,
'Cause
informal
I would think
interviews.
they'd love this. I mean, they do, obviously.
They do.
right? Yeah.
He's been doing informal interviews with students. We're heavily advertising it on social media. That's Instagram is how we reach the teenagers these days. So, and speaking of which, we have our own Instagram, FPS Nutrition, our own Twitter handle, FPS Nutrition. Please follow us. And we sort of piggyback off the district's Fitchburg Public Schools Facebook page. And all the pictures and whatnot that you might be seeing are Nicole here manages all that content for us. So.
When you go to FDS Nutrition, do you see the nutrition labels of the food that's being served?
No, there's instructions on how to use the app, though. We have a School Cafe app where you can access all of the nutrition information and the allergens.
Okay. Does it have, so it obviously has calories and all that
Yep.
and fat.
Yep.
Does it do sodium counts too?
I would have to check if it does sodium. I believe it's carbs and calories for
Yeah.
the students with diabetes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I just have to say this is all part of education on my part this year that is shocking, the sodium content. So that kids and adults consume in this.
Well, it is, and fortunately or unfortunately for us, we have very strict requirements for
Yeah.
how much sodium can be in,
Okay.
as well as other things. So, what we're serving always meets the USDA National School Lunch Program sodium requirements, calorie requirements, things like that. So.
And is that taken as a whole because you offer breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Are you hitting a max of a daily account or a meals-based thing?
It's based on each meal and an average over the course of the week.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thanks.
And I invite anyone up who wants to see our new Taste For program in action.
Could I share something that I just heard, for an unnamed freshman, that you can ask kids, did you go to that? It looks like there's really it. And I think some freshmen are afraid to walk across, not because the kids but just because they're freshmen.
Yep.
To walk from one end to the cafeteria to another, which kind of surprised me. So the choice, it must be that like pizza is near like the open tables for where they come in.
Well, pizza is strategically placed at the furthest end.
Yeah.
Because that's one of our more, actually, our grill line has turned out to be the most popular, but the pizza we thought would be, and that was placed strategically furthest away to cause folks to have to walk across to be able to see everything.
I think I never would have thought that like what I chose for lunch would be based on who I had to walk by. I'm just throwing that out there because it's something to think about.
I think that's a really real thing.
Yeah.
Very real thing.
It is.
Interesting.
The first
switched around, but like the salad line.
So is that what you
Because I think the salads
year
are
when you would've
over,
switched,
right?
would it change
in
how
that
much
room
people
when
are
you-
ordering pizza that day?
They're
You know?
in the grab.
I
They're
bet.
called the Red Raider
I bet it
retreat.
would.
Salads
Right.
are in there.
Yeah.
The first, especially this year, but every year we make sure we're stationed in and around there as students come in.
Yeah.
So hey, just so you know, here are the different lines. And then
Yeah,
this year when
that's good.
we went and changed everything up on them, instead of just the freshmen, the entire student body was the first couple days sort of wandering around confused. But so far it's been very well received. Our meal counts are higher than they've ever been.
Great.
Nice.
I have a quick question. For informing like this new menu, you said it was made by students, for students, and all that. Was it informed from the app that Sodexo made? Is the cafe app, is that a Sodexo app technically, or is that an FPS? Is that part of the nutrition?
That's associated with the nutrition software that we use, which is Primero Edge. That's how we build our menus.
Yeah.
I believe that's a Sodexo software,
Okay.
to my knowledge.
And what kind of data is recorded on that? The students record what they buy, what they get, and they rate it?
No, so that we use it just so they can view the menus, so they can prepare prior to going into the CAF what they'd
What they
like to
want.
take that day. Or if they have nutrition concerns, they can use it for that.
So, all right, I'd like to see that app sometime, just to see, like, does it record, do they choose what they want that day on the app, or they just look at the menu?
It's just, they're able
It's
to
just
view the
an open
menu
menu.
to see what, we're not at the point yet. We're trying, we've explored the possibility of the logistics of a pre-order system.
Sure.
But in serving 900 students a day,
Yeah.
it can be difficult.
Of course.
But the app is it's an app that Sodexo contracts with to use. And it provides daily menus and the nutritional information, so students who, like Nicole was saying, want to know how many calories might be in, our chicken sandwich, things like that.
Because I remember like last year they came and presented an app that they were making that was just for that. Like the students would have a meal and they'd rate it.
Well, we
the
did
scale so they could make a better
few years
menu.
ago, under the prior director, we were looking at that and we were trying to launch that, but there were some glitches with the software and it never really got off the ground.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah, the rating app, it never wasn't able to get off the ground.
Great. Yes.
I just want to chime in. I'd written to Chef Dave before, but my daughter is now actually at this middle school. Loves the food, loves her teachers, but loves the food, and it was really great to hear. So, fifth grade, you're hitting it out of the park.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Nicole. So, have you move and I'll. I have a little transition moment here. So, tonight we're going to talk about our school improvement plans, and I'd ask the school committee to look at tonight as part one of a story, and that part two of the story will be unveiled on October 7. This is really where we were and where we're at, and then at the next school committee meeting, we'll talk about a little bit more where we're at and our plans and how we're going to get there. Okay, if that makes sense. So, if you all remember,
Can you turn the fan on? Is that I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
It's just such a distraction. It's blowing all the papers around.
we had,
Check it out.
New air conditioning unit? Pull the
It's
plug.
never been this strong.
Has
It's
it
blowing all
really,
my
yeah?
papers over. It's never
On the bottom looks.
Back to order. Sorry about that,
This is what we call the innovation portion of the program.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
notice it just took a pen. Yeah, it was an intervention.
That's all right. If it gets too hot in here, you're going back up and turning it around.
No, I'll get it next time. All right.
You figured out the technology?
Yeah. All right. The on button. That's all it was.
Good.
Let's do it.
So last year, when we received the 2018 MCAS data, we learned that 4 of our schools were in the bottom 10%, and they were put into the accountability status with DESE. And that started a process over the last year that really was the planning and root cause analysis process. So with Adam and John, we tried to put together a timeline that summarized last year and also where we're at this year. So after we learned of the accountability status, we created turnaround teams at each of the schools in the last, I'll call it calendar quarter of the year, and began working with our instructional leadership teams and talking about root cause analysis. During that time, we also engaged the Department of Education's, they call it the Statewide System of Support, formerly the DSAC team, to begin working with all the 4 school teams that were placed in the accountability status. During the second half of the year, or starting the second half of the year, we had visits from a third-party firm called AIR, who was under, I guess, an exclusive contract with DESE to come in and do interviews, some root cause analysis, and they presented their reports to us really between February 1 and May 31. And we had a chance to digest those reports, share them with staff, and begin making our plans for this year. Okay. So then, also during the last few months of the last year, what's up here on the screen, make sure I have the correct slides here, that we had one school, Memorial Middle School, was designated or eligible to apply for a school redesign grant. And last year, Memorial did apply for a school redesign grant, although Sally left the table here. Sally joined the school-based leadership team, Roanne, John, Adam, myself, and Alicia at an interview down in Malden, and we were approved for the full ask, about $312,000 a year for the next 3 years. So that will really accelerate the turnaround efforts here at this school. So this year, as we mentioned earlier, the 2019 accountability data has been released by the state. That data right now is embargoed, and we are looking at the data. We just had a meeting this morning with all the principals to reflect on the data, where they made improvement, kind of the good, the bad, and the ugly, so to speak. What was positive, what are some goals for this year. Over the next month, we'll be refining those goals to try to create some SMART goals for the schools and the district, and present and share those goals with you at the October 7 meeting. We did receive feedback from the state on our turnaround plans today. The plans do not need to be rewritten. There was very, I'll say, boilerplate response. Again, this was from Public Consulting Group that reviewed these plans. I guess just my editorial opinion comment was there wasn't a whole lot of value to these comments. They were, each 3 pages long or 4 pages long. John and Adam will share just the high-level categorization of what they thought of our plans. And again, in the meantime, we continue to proceed in developing our plans for the current school year. So again, and as part of that, we'll be meeting with each school's instructional leadership teams, performing walkthroughs, and really, going into the schools. We just created a visit schedule this morning. We broke up central office into 2 groups to start visiting the schools, doing classroom walkthroughs, and again, meeting with their teams to work on schools to narrow the achievement gap for next year. So, having said that, I turn the mic over to John and Adam.
So these are last year's accountability indicators for each school. FHS was in the 12th percentile last year, Longview Middle School in the 7th, Rheingold was in the 4th, and McKay Arts Academy and Memorial Middle School both in the 3rd. It was being in the 3rd percentile that allowed Memorial to apply for that grant, which they received. And the district had to make a decision last year whether it was going to be McKay or Memorial, but because of the size of the school,
Excuse me,
at the
could I
time.
just ask one question?
Sure.
At this point, is this based on 100%? Did any school get 100%? When you say we were in the 3rd percentile?
So it's based on all of the other schools in the state. So
What was the highest?
the highest in the district was Crocker.
No, the highest in the state.
Oh,
There are schools that are 100.
Yeah.
There are
I
schools.
think
are
the
schools
scale's
at
from
100.
0 to 100 or
And you're
0 to
going to look
99.
at the schools, I believe Westwood was in the 99th percentile. I know someone who works in Westwood. Wellesley's usually fairly high, Lexington, Acton, Boxborough.
So go 99 to 3 is rough. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. If you look at that data and then you compare the median income, average income,
Right.
they almost fall directly in line.
It's all income? Wow.
Well, no, it's not. I'm not saying it's income. They just
if you look at the
happen to
list,
fall in line.
Yeah.
So Fitchburg being the 340th poorest city or town in the state, we have some schools that are well above that, and that's our goal, is to get all of these schools that have low accountability up to where South Street and Crocker were last year.
Yeah, and if I could just add, that's why it's so important that the legislature approves an education funding reform bill. The increase in funding that we received this year is targeted towards helping English language learners, students in higher poverty districts, recognizing the increase in special education costs and health insurance here. But that funding this year was very intentional to narrow the achievement gap. So.
Thank you.
So as Bob had mentioned, we actually received our feedback from last year's turnaround plans today around 2 o'clock. So looking at it, relatively quickly, it was rather boilerplate recommendations for improvement of the plans. But as you can see on this slide, the plans were all either rated for the different standards, developing, meets, or exceeding, which was, the plans were well written and really well received. But we will take this information and the recommendations along with the preliminary MCAS data to steer where the plans need to go for improvement for this year.
So just switching gears a little bit to talk about how we developed our central office administration. Over the summer, the central office administration worked with a outside leadership development consultant by the name of Lyle Kurtman. So he came in and he did a day workshop with us at central office, really looking at our team for us to work together and establish a really strong and cohesive team. And one of the activities that we had to do was to come up with a change strategy that we would implement this year to increase results for students. So as a central office administration, we came up with our change strategy, which is up here. It's build trust through clear communication and expectations. So that's kind of our goal this year in order to improve student achievement is to build trust through clear communication and expectations. And below that, we have some examples of how we're going to carry that out. So the first one is to create a really tiered support of both social-emotional learning and academics. So right now we have pockets of excellence happening in our school district for tiered social-emotional support and academics. What we want to do is really make that a really strong thing happening at all schools. So we want to be on the same page at all of schools. No matter where you go to, we'll have the same intervention for social-emotional and academics. So that's one goal that we're working on this year. In addition to that, this year we're going to be looking at implementing a social-emotional screener for our students. So just like we assess students for reading and mathematics, we're going to be looking at implementing a social-emotional screener so we can really tease out where we need to focus on building students' social-emotional skills. In addition to that, we are going to be making sure we implement a really systematic approach to analyzing data at all our schools. What we found out during our site visits from the third-party consultant this past year, in addition to the onboarding that we did as an administration team, there's pockets of schools that are really doing a great job at analyzing data and coming up with interventions for students, and there's other schools that are not doing that. So what we're doing this year is we're going to make that system happen at all our schools, so we're really meeting students' needs and they're getting what they need. In addition to that, we really want to make sure that we are communicating effectively and giving all our stakeholders a voice, whether that's parents, whether that's teachers, whether that's paraprofessionals, everyone in the community. We really want to have their voice heard. So we're going to be looking at making sure whenever we have some type of decision that we get all our stakeholders' feedback before we make any decisions. We want to hear from people. Just a few examples around that is Bob this past year did a really great job when we looked at the calendar, getting input from parents in addition to our teachers before making a decision. So we want to really replicate that into the work we do this year. And the last thing is to create a collaborative and innovative district improvement team. So each Monday, we're going to be meeting as central office cabinet in addition to principals at each school to really focus on data and to really make sure that we're meeting all the students' needs and especially making sure we're implementing all the strategies that are outlined in our school improvement plans, TAP plans. So those are kind of our goals this year to improve student achievement for all in Fitchburg, coming from central office. Any questions on that?
So I'm getting the impression that you're really involved and you're really on site. You're seeing what's happening as it's happening, more or less. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
maybe
we want
not hour
to.
by hour, but certainly week by week. And I'm impressed with that. That's great.
We want to have that two-way communication open.
Yeah.
So
Wonderful.
That's our goal. All right, so in front of you, you have 8 school improvement plans. So what we try to do this evening is to kind of give you a very high overview of all the plans and some themes that they have all together. One thing, if you've had a second to look at the 8 plans, the school improvement plan format has changed. They're very different from what you're used to. Because of the 4 schools that were in turnaround, the district made a decision on to go with the TAP plans, the school improvement TAP plans that were required for the 4 schools to do. So all the schools in Fitchburg school improvement plans are now based on the state TAP format. Okay. TAP. Turnaround plan. Okay. Turnaround plan. So in front of you, there's 8 sections, and I want to briefly go over each section. So when you get into the school improvement plans, or the TAP plans, you know what each section's about. So the first section is the executive summary. That's a quick snapshot of the school, the demographics, and the data. The second is the stakeholder engagement. There's going to be different levels as you read these plans because some schools are required to do more than others. So if you look at the schools that were required for TAP, to write the TAP plans, there's an overview of the site visits that were conducted by the state. Other information that you're going to find in there from other schools, there's information on PTO and school events, school council, surveys to teachers, surveys from teachers to get feedback on the conditions of the school. And then there's also information about some Title I surveys that you're going to read about. For Section 3, Envision the Future, that's for each school, that kind of explains the long-term vision of each school and what they're hoping to achieve for students. The Section 4, Assessment and Assets of Challenges, that is an overview of what the school will address and a summary of data being analyzed and the processes and the procedures of implementing or looking at those assets and challenges. Section 5 is kind of the meat and potatoes of all this work and really what this presentation will focus on. We'll get into these 4 pillars of turnaround practices. And those pillars are really the key approaches and leverages that we're going to be implementing this year to improve student achievement. The next section, Section 6, is the district systems. So that's an overview of how the district is going to support each school in its school improvement efforts. And then the last section is Section 7. and that's the goals, benchmarks, and progress monitoring. That's going to be kind of going over those measurable annual goals for students and teachers and having benchmarks addressing when those areas will be accomplished throughout the school year. And then the last piece, in order to meet the school improvement components established by Mass General Law, we added those components in the back to make sure that these were appropriate to be using for school improvement plans. Okay?
The next two slides are really about introducing the 4 turnaround pillars, and we'll get into more detail about each one of those further on in the presentation. But turnaround practice 1 is leadership, shared responsibility, and professional collaboration. So in the past, really, the principal was the more knowing other in almost all aspects of school. That's not a reality in today's educational landscape. Now it's really, the principal's job is really to access the expertise of the staff in order to make improvements of the school. And there are different ways that we're going to do that. We'll get into more detail in just a moment. Turnaround practice 2, intentional practices for improving instruction. This is really about our Tier 1 instruction, our base curriculum that should really serve 80 to 85% of all students, in making sure that it's being implemented right and that it's high quality and that the teachers are well trained on that.
And the next 2 turnaround pillars, turnaround practice 3, is student-specific supports and instruction to all students. So this is very specific. What does each individual student need, and how are we going to provide that for them? That's what that turnaround practice talks about. And then the last turnaround practice 4 is school culture and climate. That talks about how the environment needs to be safe, respectful, orderly in order for students to achieve. It talks about relationship building, and it talks about, teaching those social emotional skills to students in order for them to achieve.
So in turnaround practice 1, leadership, shared responsibility, and professional collaboration. That often looks like a distributed leadership model in a school, and Fitchburg is going to do that through an instructional leadership team. Members of the instructional leadership team will be a member from each grade level. There'll be a special education member, a member from the ELL community and specials. Some schools may have members from other groups as well, but these members are going to represent the school community. It's going to be a way for principals to share information out, but also to get information back in. There's oftentimes there's staff that may feel uncomfortable approaching the principal. I can't understand why that would be, but newer staff, or if it's a sensitive topic, they might not want to come talk to the principal. By having an instructional leadership team, you have a representative on your grade level team or on your specialist team or special education representative that you can talk to about something, and they can then share that with the principal in a safe and responsible way. That information can then be used to help you make all types of school decisions, whether that's a problem with the curriculum, a problem with the code of conduct for discipline. There really isn't a limitation to that. The other thing that's a real benefit to this is building capacity, leadership capacity in the staff that we presently have. With all of the change in leadership this past year in Fitchburg, if we didn't have that capacity in-house and had to hire everybody from outside, we may have been in a lot of trouble. So it is time to have a formal way to really build that capacity and those leadership skills in the staff that we have. Because often not always, but often when we hire people from the outside, they stay a couple of years and then move on. But people who tend to teach in the ranks really tend to stay. So we want to give that opportunity to people that are here in Fitchburg and want to stay in Fitchburg. So turnaround practice 2, intentional practice for improving instruction. That's really about our Tier 1 instruction and to meet the needs of all students no matter where they are. It's really about finding appropriate entry points, and that's not only for special education students or ELL students, but that's for all of our students in order to improve. We've really seen in schools that have made a lot of gains, both in the past and through the preliminary data, which we can't share tonight, that schools that were really making those decisions based on the individuality of each student really had the biggest gains. Some of those initiatives that are common through many of the TAP plans are academic discourse, involvement with EdTrust. EdTrust, if you don't know, is a nonprofit organization that's mission is to improve equity and opportunity for marginalized students. Right now, what they're doing in Fitchburg is helping us calibrate staff on Webb's depth of knowledge to help increase rigor in all the schools and with questioning. Also, the Plan Do Study Act cycle is something that you see that is common through all the TAP plans. On-demand coaching and effective curriculum implementation. And really what I mean by that, and I'm going to use Rheingold as an example, is not all of our schools are using the current curriculum that we have in effective ways. Rheingold teachers were never really trained properly how to use the Eureka Math program. That was obvious last year when I went in February. So part of that TAP plan is a reintroduction to that program so that it is executed in a more comprehensive way throughout the K-4 grades.
So turnaround, oops, sorry, next one.
No, I never
They never moved it. So the next practice is turnaround practice 3, student-specific supports and instruction to all students. This is really the intervention piece, getting down to what each student needs in order for them to achieve. So there's a lot of initiatives here that we're doing. I'm only going to talk about a few of them. The biggest one right now is we're implementing a new assessment system, K-12, called iReady. It's for math and reading. And what this does, it assesses students K-12 for math and reading, and it's an adaptive test. So what it does is, as you answer the questions, if you get them wrong, it will actually bring your level down, your grade level. And if you're getting it correct, it will continue to move those test items up for each kid. So this assessment system will really give us a good gauge on where our students are. And what's great about this new assessment system is that it actually provides teachers with the skills and the standards, the Mass Curriculum Framework standards, on what kids can do for math and reading and what kids cannot do for math and reading. And what it does is it also then gives teachers actual examples of lessons in order to actually work on with students in small group or one-on-one to actually accelerate their improvement. So this system is really a game changer for us because it's really going to give us a blueprint to really figure out what's going on with students and give us a clear avenue on how to accelerate student achievement. In addition to that, some other things that we're doing, like I said before, we're looking at our creation of a common RTI model. We're really looking at that academic and social-emotional support system we have in place at all our schools and making it similar. Also, like I said before, we're really looking at implementing a way to best analyze data. So every school is going to be having a data team, and they're going to be meeting every 6 to 8 weeks to really measure students' progress and whether what we're doing for students is working or not, and who actually needs to be servicing students. We're going to make sure all stakeholders in the school are at the table, in addition to the principal, the guidance counselor, the teacher, maybe the special education teacher, the ELL teacher. Everyone's going to be at the table to really come up with a game plan for our students in order to improve achievement. And then the other piece that we need to look at too with initiative Turnaround Practice 3 is the whole personalized learning through technology. There's a lot of systems that we use in Fitchburg around personalized learning. iReady is one of them, Systems 44, Read 180, Math 180. We really need to make sure that we're really making sure when we put students on these technology-based systems that they're purposeful and they're exactly what the student needs. And then the last turnaround practice 4 is school climate and culture. We really need to continue to make sure we're doing a good job implementing that tiered system of support for social emotional learning at our schools. So some of the things that we're going to be doing, or we're going to be reading about in the school improvement plans, TAP plans, is making sure that we have that clear system of support. What are we doing for students that are on Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 levels? We're going to be making sure we implement the PBIS system, positive behavior intervention. We're going to be implementing that SEL screener this year to really get an idea of where students are and what their social-emotional areas are they need for improvement. We're going to continue implementing our long-time program of responsive classroom. In addition to restorative practices, implementing some of those restorative practices in order to manage student conflict. The biggest thing here, too, is we're going to continue to making sure we're improving attendance. Every school this year, if they didn't have one in the past, is going to have a student attendance program to make sure they're monitoring student attendance every day, every week, and making sure they have this team and are making, contact to parents, trying to figure out why the students are chronically absent, and also having parents in to, open those lines up for communication, in addition to doing some home visits for our really, really chronic absent students to figure out what's going on in order, to figure out what the barriers for why students are not coming to school. So that's going to be happening district-wide in each school. We're going to continue working with the Changemaker and Youth Venture system at the Mount Wachusett Community College. This whole Changemaker Youth Venture project really allows our students to implement those social emotional learning skills. So it's actual great program for students to implement those skills that we teach them, to see if they're sticking, and for them to spread those out throughout the community. And then the other piece is our second step curriculum. What do we do for students that don't have those social emotional skills? So we have a program called Second Step, Steps to Respect, that is implemented through our middle school and elementary schools to really teach those social emotional skills to students. So that is a very high level of all those 8 turnaround plans, school improvement plans that you have in front of you. What our goal is to have you read those, and we're going to be coming back the next school committee meeting to hopefully share out some of our MCAS data once the embargo is lifted, and then also to talk about in more detail these strategies that we're implementing to turn the schools around. Yes, Jean?
So, first of all, that's fantastic. That was just.
That was a very high-level summary.
Thank you. Really good. I have 3 things here. So, one, and maybe I could just throw them out there and you answer me after. Do the staff see these? Have they seen them? Do they know them? Do they buy into them? I see the leadership teams and all of the turnaround plans, and those people, yeah, they're definitely drank the Kool-Aid. So I'm just, but as I look, I'm just curious, right? So there's that.
Yep.
Second, I love everything that you said. What about how you might be talking about lesson planning and engagement? I mean, I heard you talking about one of the programs that was, it's escaping my mind, but to make sure that you're, the word is, that you're really handling really, what's the word? It's not robust.
Rigor.
Thank you.
Rigor.
Just lost my brain there. That you're really hitting rigor. Are you hitting engagement? Because I think, why do kids come to school? They come to school because they're excited to come to school. And how are you gauging that that's happening in classrooms? So maybe that's all I wanted to know, those 2 things, really.
So the first question with the plans in front of you, especially at the turnaround schools, they all had to have a committee of teachers to actually go through this whole process. So all that work that you see for our turnaround schools, the 4 that are in turnaround, they actually had to have a team of teachers to actually do all this work and establish
But
that.
that's happened before, and I can speak from experience, even on the other end in another system.
Yep.
That people never read. Some people never read them.
So what they all had to do the first day,
Yeah, okay.
staff PD, they went over all those components of the TAP plan
Okay.
to make sure all the teachers, all the stakeholders in the school knew what was in that TAP plan. They need to be living documents, or they just sit on the
Right.
shelf and
Okay.
collect dust. They can't be that anymore.
Even before that, they were reviewed with teachers at the end of last year. Also, when we did the root cause analysis, the entire staff was involved in the root cause analysis
Yep.
for that. So they had input of what wasn't working well and why
Okay.
before the plan was written. For the 4th turnaround schools, for what we've been involved in, the staff has bought in completely, and actually you can feel a change in culture and tone already. There's some excitement in all of the buildings. They're ready to move forward and kind of take that turn. It's I don't know if you visited yet, but when you do, I think you can tell within the first 5 minutes of walking in some of the changes.
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off what Adam says, it's the excitement is there. I've had a lot of teachers reach out and say, what do you have for data for me? Can you share data with me? Because we have teacher teams now in certain schools that never really engaged in that data process, really wanting to see what the students that are coming to them, and they're asking for that data now, which is great. So they want to do the work. They want to be engaged. So it's nice to see. Yep.
So as far as the engagement, there's a few things that I think will help with the engagement. One is the social emotional, the tiered system of social emotional support. If we can implement that correctly, what that will really do, it will calm down the tier 1 kids, about 85% of the school. We'll keep them in class, available to learn. If 85% of the school is available to learn, teachers are available to teach, right? And that way, really, it will free up the time of the administrative school guidance and adjustment to really work with students who are like tier 2 and tier 3 students who need a specific intervention for behavior, who are in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, like that hypervigilance. Just that alone will allow for more engagement, just because the teachers aren't constantly stopping to intervene with problem behaviors or shut down behaviors. That's one. Two, we have Ed Trust, our middle school's working with Ed Trust to really work on rigor, right, with that Webb's depth of knowledge, and to help with our most marginalized students. So that student discourse, that arguing back and forth to get up Bloom's to the synthesis and application should really help with that also. We haven't, some schools have talked about having a common planning template. Some already do. We're not there yet to have a district-wide one, but I think that's on the horizon.
In addition to that, too, you asked about how we're gauging that work. One of our goals, like I said earlier, for central office to be in all the schools weekly. So we're going to be going into classrooms and seeing that level of engagement, that level of discourse happening. And if it's not, we're going to give feedback to the principal and to teachers. And we're doing this in a way that it's not evaluative, it's feedback. And we're all here to improve student achievement, and that's how we hope that this feedback will be taken.
One of the things Bob has been saying since last, I'm blaming this on you, Bob, is, do we want to be a district of schools or a school district, right? And really, last year we were a district of schools. It was very different from one school to the next. By getting central office into the schools as a partner, not as a hammer, we can really help with that. And the other thing that will really help engagement, and that we've really been talking about, is entry points for kids. So we want students in ELL and special education to be exposed to grade level curriculum. We do not want them, if they're in 5th grade, they should be exposed to 5th grade curriculum, not 1st or 2nd grade curriculum, because maybe they're struggling or there's a language issue there. But to do that, what we need to do is have our teachers be able to identify appropriate entry points for that curriculum for those students. So those entry points should help with engagement for students who are either have a language issue or struggling academically because of a disability.
I think, Jonathan, that was great to hear you say that. That was a concern I had. Both you and Adam have had experience with data and data teams and been very successful at it. And that we have new administrators, and that you're more of a mentor, I hope, going in. And
so that's one of Adam's key responsibilities in his new position. He's in the schools more than I am, and he's helping those principals develop those data systems. To make sure that they're being implemented correctly at all schools. So Adam's been meeting with principals to develop those systems for the last couple of weeks.
We have a lot of really good things happening in Fitchburg. Data being one of them, like John said, there's Crocker and South Street, I would say, are using data and using it very well. So rather than reinvent the wheel at each school, we're going to replicate what's happening in those schools, in the elementary schools, and then figure out that for the middle and high schools too. But for instance, John's school had some terrific improvement on attendance. So we're not going to simply have 4 elementary schools with 4 different ways of improving attendance. We're going to use that system.
We're going to share the plan and what we did.
We're going to take those pockets of excellence and spread it.
our kids throughout the city, they're not different they're all the same. So, I mean, it should, one good plan, it's been working, you got two schools, it should work system-wide.
You're absolutely right.
'Cause all of our kids are, they're the same.
Go ahead.
Well, I think that's the goal, Pete, is really to have high standards and high outcomes and really equity across all our schools. We're based on the 2018 data, a range from, 4% to 46% on the elementary schools. So they should all be, 50% range. Again, when we report out next month, we can talk a little bit more about that. But, a goal of the state, and as again, they're providing more funding to urban districts like Fitchburg, is to have more equitable outcomes, so our outcomes can climb the ladder to those W communities. And I'd like to hope that we could hit 100% one day, but let's take steps to get there.
I had a few questions. Is this material the material that you said you received more or less a boilerplate response on?
I'm sorry, is this
These are,
Yes, the
It is.
feedback from the state, yes.
feedback on these plans? yes.
Right, so
on these plans.
it seems solid and they're just, okay.
Well,
And
the-
is this what, I'm sorry?
the feedback is on the specific schools' plans, not their presentation.
No.
Correct.
No, it's on
You
each,
think-
so the 4 schools that were required to write turnaround plans for the state, we got feedback at 2:00 today, based on those plans. So that feedback that we received from the state wasn't the best.
It wasn't
Right.
very,
Well, it wasn't-
it wasn't very,
Feedback-
it wasn't
feedback
very
was good.
robust, if we can resurrect that term from earlier in the evening.
So it's not
do you mean,
what
our
you
plan
turned
wasn't
into
the
the
best?
state and what they.
Feedback.
The
No,
feedback wasn't
feedback,
the-
it was very canned.
It was very surface level.
Well, it was a consultant hired by the
Could you
state.
say more about that?
Well, it
Why
seemed,
wasn't it? why
it seemed
wasn't
like copy and paste.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were very
Comments.
comments, there wasn't
Yeah.
very specific comments to the school's plan, it was a very generic statement made.
The feedback wasn't putting the plan down, it was just a generic comments.
Yeah.
Could send it
In
to
or-
many school
yeah,
systems.
for
on the
example,
state.
in order
Yeah.
to make this plan better, think about,
Yeah, well, it was Monday, too, you know what I mean? It must-
Can you- if
Whoever
you go-
wrote it had a wild weekend,
If
probably.
you go back to that original slide where it said developing meets expectations, exceeds expectations, that's pretty much what you got back.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
with a little bit more detail underneath.
With
each.
about three
didn't
three
get-
sentences under each.
Okay, but
The same
Rating.
statement was on, there were some statements that were on different plans. It was the
Yeah,
same
it was
comment.
the same
On different
comment.
plans.
but my
Monday.
point is, what you sent into them and what they gave you feedback on was not ditto of what you all just said to
No,
us.
no.
That you're giving us your skilled, developing professional, best, what to do for Fitchburg.
Yes,
It
yes.
was not, okay. So, when you said that you're basically following the TAP plan, is everything that you just said to us incorporated in the TAP plan?
Yeah, so the TAP plan format, that's on page, oh, I'm sorry, go back, it was slide 8. So in your plans, every plan for every school follows this format. So when
Okay.
you read through that,
Yeah,
those are the sections that you're gonna read about.
right. But what you just presented to us is even above that. You just said that's the highest.
Yeah, it's all the plans
overview
together,
of
it's an
all the
overview.
There's
So
a lot of overlap.
There's
in
a
the
lot
plans.
of, a lot of overlap in the plan. So when you read the plans, you're gonna see that some of these elements that we talked about tonight are in the plans.
Okay, but still, what you just gave us is even more excellent than anything that's been written down or given to the state yet, or whatever.
What we just presented is what's in the plan. The plans are more detailed than what we said
Okay.
tonight.
One other thing, I was thinking as you were speaking, none of us are, automatons. I mean, we're always making choices minute by minute. I'm even choosing now what to say to you. You're choosing how to respond to me. Is it realistic to think that children will all of a sudden have the virtue to make good choices?
No, we have to put them in the situation to make good choices.
That's going to aid and help them
Right.
to, you still
So
can't
that-
make
that-
them. but,
Absolutely,
yeah.
that goes along with TAP 4, School Culture and Climate. It's very easy for a school not to to not be in control, to have kids running in hallways, for instance. But if you set up the routines and procedures in the right way,
Right.
it makes it much easier to make a good choice
Yeah.
than it is to make
Climate helps and all of you,
Absolutely.
right?
So that's something that we will be taking best practice and spreading throughout, because there are many schools in this district that run their day-to-day operations in that way, because it's trauma sensitive. It is a way to run a school so that kids who have experienced a traumatic event in their life aren't triggered from different things
Yeah.
from being in the school.
That sounds so good. And just one other thing, where does recess fit into all of this?
It's there. Recess happens every day for 20 minutes?
15 to 20.
15 to 20 minutes
That's
a day.
it for the day, for
Yeah.
the kids?
Yeah. But what we do
That
is...
doesn't include that they have to have their lunch during
Right,
that
but what
time
we do
period.
is we include a lot of brain breaks, breaks for students in order to get their energy out. So they'll be doing different yoga poses, they may be doing jumping jacks, they may be doing dancing. So they include that, they embed that throughout the day. And research says those are really best practices in order for improved student achievement. So we only have 20 minutes on the books, or 15, 20 minutes on the books, but students are given those opportunities or provided those opportunities every day.
And teachers are using their professional judgment in the moment to give those breaks when needed. And, when you spent enough time in front of a classroom, you know when they need
You know
that
when they
break.
need it.
Yeah. And the brain breaks are great, and the mindfulness, yoga in the classroom.
Okay, it's the second best, I guess. Doesn't, okay,
I think what you're
Yeah.
hearing is something you're hearing throughout the state, that there are some school systems who have taken recess away completely, and
Yeah.
that doesn't work.
Okay.
Jonathan, I have something, because it's part of the plans, but school improvement councils.
Yeah, they all should be on the back.
Yes, they are, and that's where and that's state law.
Yep.
All right. And I know it's going to be something that principals struggle with, but some of them are good, in my opinion, some of them aren't. The School Improvement Council should be basically a principal. It should be about three teachers, 3 parents, 3 community members. But if you can't do that, which the state is looking for, then it should have parity. Your co-chair should be a parent and not another teacher. The teacher should not outnumber parents, so the parity. So, and I know it's very difficult, and I know as a principal, to get those people, but I think some of the things that they should continue to work towards, and try and go what the state law requires.
Pete, one of the things that we've done in the past couple of years is piggyback the school council to the beginning of the PTO meeting.
Yeah.
And that's worked pretty well, because the parents are going to show up for the PTO meeting. Whether or not we can get people to show up for the school council meeting is another thing. So
Yeah. Well-
I've taken 15, 20 minutes of every PTO meeting and have run a school council.
Yeah, they're separate meetings,
Oh,
but in order to
I
get
know,
that,
But, things like
that participation,
parents-
that's what we
Parents are
do.
supposed to be elected by the
PTO.
PTO.
Right, yeah.
Teachers are supposed to be elected by the staff.
That's tough, because that's really got to be a volunteer.
But if if you get the volunteers and then have a vote.
Yeah, and that's what we do. So every school, and we should actually probably review this with all the new principals to make sure they understand
That's,
school council law. But we tried to, well, I know I did at South Street. We had a vote every year.
Yeah.
People were elected, and we have to do a better job as a school system to get more people engaged. So that's one of the goals we need to do.
I know I had a complaint one year about the parents' election. I had to produce all the ballots
Yes, yeah.
that was done at a PTO meeting and so forth, Just, and I know it's not easy, but it's something that, some things like, maybe chair and the co-chair, they should not be 2 teachers, of the principal and the assistant principal. But if you can get a parent or the community rep in there, work as closely towards getting the school council to look like what the law calls for. Just a comment.
I have one further comment, if I may. You want to go, Sally, first?
Nope, no, go right ahead.
I would like to just, and this thought was generated by my oldest daughter, it's the people that pay for the school system. And in concept, instead of having just a school culture, in-school culture, could you also consider maybe inviting the public, the paying public to whatever, or let them know somehow through your system, include them, not, am I making sense to you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was really struck by the social emotional screening tool. Has this been, are you developing this? Has this been developed? This sounds like something incredibly useful, yet complicated.
I'm going to defer to Roanne on that.
Okay.
She's the all-knowing on that.
Thanks.
The district has had a team in place for a couple of years, kind of examining this practice, and we've been part of a state process. And one of the pieces that we've been looking at is how do we collect data on social emotional needs of students, so then we can determine what type of instruction or supports are needed. There are a lot of programs out there, because this is a big initiative for many districts. We've decided on one particular program through Devereaux. It's called the DESA Mini. And so we will be purchasing that. It's an online platform where teachers will have classrooms set up, and then you answer 7 questions about students, and those 7 questions, and categorize them as doing okay, need some help, and really like a kind of a warning sign. Then if they hit a particular warning area, it allows the teacher to go in and complete a further assessment, which is 72 questions. So then it aligns that to instruction and resources. And then our staff have access to all of that. So then at the building level, we can take a look at other types of resources a kid might need. Counseling, groupings with guidance around social emotional supports, whether we need to have more in-depth counseling, whether they need an assessment through special education, all of those factors will be considered with that particular data, and that data will be collected twice a year. So we'll get a quick inventory on students that might be struggling, especially internally, that aren't maybe showing us behaviorally like some of our students do, but these are kids that might be struggling internally that we can then help to support on a daily basis.
So the teacher is answering and the students are answering, or just
At the
the
high
teachers?
school level, there is a component for students to respond, but at the younger grade level, it's based on family and teacher. For this year, it will be the teacher internal support till we get the program up and running, and then parents will get a survey at home as well.
And then I had a question about the high school. So a teacher, I can understand in elementary because you have 20-something kids under your, but what about for a high school teacher? Are they doing their 90 to 120 kids student load?
Well, they're going to have to make some decisions around who might fill out for particular students, who may know student better. Sometimes it could be a guidance counselor. It could be a teacher that had the student in the past. So we're going to have to do a little bit more work at the high school level, because that is a challenge. When you see sometimes 100 students a day, you may not be able to answer the questions. But there is a student component, so the student could then answer their own 7
that's probably
areas.
really helpful, yeah.
Coaches fill it out? Like, who's the other personnel in the school that can fill these things out?
So every staff member will have a login.
Okay. So coaches too?
Yep.
Yep, interesting.
Yep. So we don't have the program yet. We're going to be purchasing that and then exploring that beginning in October.
Was that very expensive?
No, actually it wasn't. For a whole district program, do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't. $2 or $3 a student?
Yeah, I think it was $2 or $3 a student.
And it gives you access to a lot of resources and curriculum ideas.
Great. That's really exciting. I'd love to know, are we the leaders doing this in this general area, or?
No, a lot of districts are moving in this direction. It's just what type of program are they picking to go with? A lot of districts are using the DESA and the DESA Mini. We've explored a couple other options, but chose this one just right now, based primarily in the fact that the DESA Mini has a quick screener for staff to do, because when you have a large group of students, you don't want to be answering 72 questions per student. That's going to be very cumbersome. So we're looking for a quick screener and then a more in-depth if kids pop up from that screener.
It gives them resources too.
Yep, a lot of resources.
Yeah, there's resources, just like our iReady system that we're using for math and reading. It will give us resources to actually use with students to improve social emotional skills. So all the teachers will have all the resources available to them.
So DESSA mini assessment, I found it here.
Aperture is the company.
Aperture, okay.
How does Memorial's influx of money, this grant that they received, how does that fit into the plan that you just spoke of for the different schools?
Well, as part of their, sorry. What'd you give me?
So, a part of their improvement plan, or their TAP plan, they have a budget page that goes along that supports all their initiatives for their pillars, turnaround, practice 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that new money is actually supporting teacher professional development, book studies for teachers, it's all curriculum, interventions for students.
Only at Memorial?
Yeah, well, it's
only at Memorial.
It's the redesign grant.
Yeah.
And
Right.
only one building could apply for it per district. And for us to apply for that redesign grant, we had to be very explicit about how we're going to spend that money. So we had to include a very detailed budget page, and that's what Bob was talking about when we went into Malden to speak with them. We had to speak about that entire plan plus the budget page.
Now
So
I'm
there's-
asking about its integration into the wider city plan. I mean, they're not going to be just above themselves, growing.
No, it has to be integrated in, and there was a lot of discussion about what they're utilizing that's district-wide and being embedded with that. But that funding source is coming explicitly from the redesign grant.
I understand that, and I can imagine it'll be a refreshing influx.
Yep.
But now I'm stepping out of that and saying, but that school is part of the district,
So for
school.
example, Ed Trust was part of the work that they incorporated into their TAP plan from feedback that we've already been getting from schools and the successes that we've had with schools in that work, like through Fitchburg High School has had some Ed Trust work, and that's really breaking down that lesson plan development. So they incorporated that into their redesign grant, knowing that that's the support, some of the support that they'll need.
And one other thing, the constant, or the yearly, annual statement that I occasionally hear is that and I've seen it too, the problem that the students didn't have books, but they were working all out of mimeographs. Will the students in all of our classrooms have hard books or not books, or where's the status of that situation?
I just want to do a point of order. You guys are talking about the DESA and the social emotional learning, and this would actually be another topic. So it's this topic would be curriculum. I leave it to the mayor and everyone else if we're going to move the topic of discussion from the social emotional learning and the presentation that you have.
You want to respond to that?
I mean, by all means you can. I'm just
Yeah.
pointing it out. It's a departure.
It's an urban myth, I believe,
Yeah.
clearly, but I don't know.
There are some books that are
Yeah.
copied at the
Right.
younger level, but it's intentional
Yeah.
because we want the kids to take them home
Yeah.
and keep them.
Yeah.
so that there are some that are run off, but there are books.
Never had that is total misinformation.
That's right.
In addition to that, a lot of our curriculum documents that we use now have online components, so students can log in and get that material on a phone, on a tablet, on a computer at home.
Right, thank you.
Now down to 8th grade, one-to-one.
Seventh, I think.
Seventh grade.
Seventh grade.
Seventh grade.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all online now, the
Yes.
kids, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready for part 2. After we get through this.
Boy, they did good, though.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Thank you, John.
Felt kind of overwhelmed. Read all these for tonight. I didn't get it done. I really it's a lot that I don't. There's so many
It'll be nice
phrases
even
that
after
I haven't
getting
learned
up.
out. Yeah, there's so many things that
This is like medicine, you know, everything's a.
yeah. it gives-
Okay,
You're gonna be
so
doing-
continuing on,
Bob, would you mention all the donation, the people who donated, make sure that?
I can.
Yes. We want to give the credit, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I'll take a couple minutes to go
Is there
through.
a mistake in the sequencing of the action item? It goes 19, 12, 14, and then it goes to 12, 16. There's a 15 missing?
You know, there is a 15 missing.
Yeah.
There is a 15 missing.
Yeah. So we'd end up with, I don't know, we'd have to vote on them as they're written, obviously, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
So I'll quickly just go through the agenda items and recognizing the donors and the respective amounts. So first of all, we have some school supplies and classroom supplies, estimated value of $300 for students and teachers from Ahmadiyya Mosque. Ahmadiyya Mosque. Thank you, Mayor. Then we have 4 donations in total of about 1,000 backpacks. First one for 125 backpacks full of school supplies and gift cards with inspirational notes and messages. Estimated value of $3,500 from JR Glass. Next donation of backpacks is for 100 in quantity. Again, same with new school supply, estimated value at $2,750. And this is action number 191205. The correct donor name is City United Church, not Twin City Baptist Church. That was their former name. Next donation is for more backpacks, school supplies, estimated value of $300 from Access Communications and Mission 500. Another 250 backpacks donated in school supplies with a value of about $2,000 from BNT, a local professional networking association, James Bradbury, a partner of Amabile and Berkeley, PC. Another donation of school supplies, estimated value of $200 from the local Salvation Army chapter. Donation of a cleanup of Memorial Middle School outside in front, some landscaping by Joe Fermani. Joe Fermani was also involved with the donation of the Fitchburg High School Memorial Garden cleanup, estimated value of $4,700, along with the operation and service of Avery Dennison helped on that one. We have an anonymous donation of 3 musical instruments, a trumpet, a Bundy alto saxophone, an acoustic guitar, estimated value of $500. We have another donation of an 18-foot truck body and delivery service to the Fitchburg Athletic Department, estimated value of $1,200 from Ridemore, heavy duty. That'll be used to store football equipment at Amiot Field. Then we move on to the grants. So we have several grants that were.
Yes.
I just wanted to let folks know, because those of us who are at Resources did find out that we have a number of new benefactors this year. And I really appreciate the superintendent reading out the names of those benefactors. We are so appreciative, to have new folks who have stepped up to help our kids have a great start to the school year. And I just want to say thank you to all of them. So
I
don't mean to
noticed, it's really, this is community right here.
Yes.
This is-
Stepping up.
This is,
I mean, these donations, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Mosque.
Oh, yeah.
My friends there, this is fabulous.
I think
It
this
really
is
does
an
speaks-
unprecedented level of
Yeah,
support.
it speaks about the commitment that we're all in this together. You know what I mean?
Well, and Alhana, who is our student representative, is a member, and I look forward to asking her, were you inspired to bring this to the mosque? Because
Could
to
be.
give this much money
Yeah.
to supplies.
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, then for grants, we're submitting 2 grants, the Mass Grad Promising Practices Grant for $35,000 and one for students with disabilities for $30,000. We'll be submitting those with your vote. And then we'll be accepting a number of grants, McKinney-Vento for $20,000, the Emergency Response Impact Aid for Homeless Children for $9,500, fiscal year '20 Healthy School Grant for $10,000, United Way Tutoring Grant for $21,500, Title I Improving Basic Programs at just under $2.5 million, and that was just a small decrease from the prior year. Title IIA Professional Development, $302,837. Title III English Language Learning Initiatives for $122,624. Title V Student Support and Academic Enrichment, $170,252. ELT Grant at Longsjo, $887,850. 21st Century After School Programming Grants, total of $581,834. E-rate funding, which is $3,367.41. Another E-rate funding approval for $23,794.66. Actually, there's 3 A-rates. I think 2 are for services and 1 maybe for capital, Craig?
Yes.
Then the third E-rate is for $3,285.11. Safe Schools for $80,000. That was from a Commonwealth of Mass grant. That's going towards the doors at Longsjo and Crocker. And then moving on to school choice, we have a recommendation or request for $66,825 of school choice funds for the purpose of technology upgrade of 55 Epson mounted projectors and installation equipment for grades K through 2nd grade across the district. And then lastly, one of the items previously approved at the School Resource Subcommittee was the recommendation to set up an IT revolving account. In your packet, there's attached Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53, terms of it was necessary to set up an account as students, we would lose their power cords for their Google Chromebooks. In terms of reimbursing the district for those cords, we needed to set up a separate account. So then the remaining items are the 3 policies, 2 of which were discussed tonight. I didn't know if there were any questions in regards to the physical restraint policy, number 5712, that you had. And then the last item was the warrant, which is live this evening.
Okay. As I mentioned, this, it's not accurately sequenced here. We're missing a 15, but as written action items, we still can bundle those.
Make a motion that we bundle them?
Second.
Motion made. Yes.
I think we got a request last year to not bundle policies. Is that still? Are we, remember that from last year? When we had like confusion with bundling policies specifically?
No, we need to
Is that
read them.
okay?
We need
We
to
need
do
to do
those
them
separately.
Yeah, we can do
Yeah.
those separately. Okay. So we're going to hold out 19-1218 and 19-1219, correct? Right? So those others are bundled. Motion accepted. Motion approved. Motion made. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Now, 19-1218, approve the superintendent's recommendation to accept the second reading of the bullying prevention and intervention
Motion?
policy number 7514. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. 19-1219, approve the superintendent's recommendation to accept the first reading of the collection of people
Motion.
information policy. Motion made.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. No need for executive session. Do I hear a motion to
Motion
adjourn?
for
And before you adjourn,
Oh, yes.
the warrant, the 1220,
Oh, the warrant, yes. That's a biggie. Right. 19-1214, number 19 and 20, and those, as you can see.
Motion to pay the bills.
Motion made, pay the bills, and seconded. All in favor?
Aye. Motion for adjournment.
Second.
Motion made and seconded for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.